Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the Elon members, especially its president, Isaac Asa, and congratulate them on the official launch of this organization in Argentina. I also want to thank everyone here today. We are happy to be with you and to be part of Elon. As I have received recognition for political innovation from you today, I would like to take a minute to briefly reflect on what that concept means. There is an interesting quote by Mises that says the economy never stops, change, movement, and the emergence of unforeseen events are constant. I'll say this in advance, I'm not going to talk about economics because I'm focusing on creative destruction, on Schumpeter, so don't worry. It's just a reference to help us build an argument. In a way, this phrase indicates that, if reality is in a constant process of change, innovation is not so much a choice as an obligation. Because failing to adapt to a changing reality and clinging to dogmas that don't fit with that reality is inevitably the path to defeat. You have to be firm in your convictions, but intelligent in translating those convictions into a changing reality, because if you don't innovate, reality takes you down. I want to emphasize this. You have to be firm in your convictions. Being firm in your convictions is, we suffer this every day because we're making decisions every day, and one has to have a direction. One sets a direction. One searches for that direction, but reality isn't a uniform, rectilinear movement, so one has to advance toward that reality one is seeking. And obviously, it's not a smooth, easy path. Or anything like that. There are obstacles. Some you can jump over, some you can sidestep, and I'm going to tell you something. Every time you dodge an obstacle, someone is going to criticize you. Not only that, but not only will they criticize you, there will also be others who will shoot at you. But it's also part of the challenge one faces. One of the things that's also important when one undertakes these types of situations, and that at least helps me a lot, is to reflect on Moses, already on the way to the Promised Land, having crossed the Red Sea. And there's something very interesting, because if Moses got up late, they would say he was lazy. If he got up early, he'd had a fight with his wife. And if he got up on time, it meant he had nothing to do. No matter what he did, they were going to criticize him. So, if they criticized Moses, they can say anything to me, it's no problem. So, also know that whatever you do, they're going to criticize you. The only ones who don't criticize are the useless people who do nothing. So that's why I want to point out and underline this paragraph again, which says, you have to be firm in your convictions, but intelligent in translating those convictions into a changing reality. Because if you don't innovate, reality will take you down. That's the reality. This is true for economics, as Mises says, for those of us who make macroeconomic decisions, and also for business people. Entrepreneurs who decide what, how, and when to produce and market. But it's also true for politics. Look, for example, at how the Argentine political reality changed. And the traditional political leadership failed to adapt to this new reality. Since I decided to enter politics 4 years ago, I've insisted on an idea that I think many people have identified with, which is that we can't expect different results if we always do the same thing. This is a heuristic principle, that is, a methodological principle. about how we approach a discovery or how we discover the truth or a truth. When faced with any problem, before knowing what to do, we must understand that if we do what everyone else did and everyone else failed, then we will fail. We economists often talk about type 1 errors or type 2 errors. A type 1 error is when you do everything right and it goes wrong, and a type 2 error is when you do everything wrong and it goes right. That's quite interesting as a methodology, as a way of being self-critical, because even when it may turn out well, it could be a fluke. If you like, the best example of type 2 errors was Kirchnerism. And the truth is that every time they insist on the same recipe, all they do is cause more and more damage and sink us further each time. That's why it's also interesting when we're trying to fix the mess they caused, for them to come and criticize us, because the truth is, we want to do the exact opposite because you ruined everything and had a 4-year run of luck because of the type 2 error. So, you can't be banking on type 2 errors, that is, doing everything wrong and it turning out right. Therefore, I repeat, we cannot expect different results by doing the same old thing. I believe this principle underlies the political innovation we have introduced in recent years. We discovered it's true for political practice, because by doing the opposite, or what everyone else was doing, we reached the presidency, doing the exact opposite. We did the exact opposite. Everything the manual recommended in the conventional Argentine format, we did the exact opposite. And what did they say? That we weren't going to make it. Well, they didn't see it. They still don't. But hey, some of them. And we did it despite not having the resources that all the other candidates had, and against the recommendations of all the analysts, consultants, and dinosaurs who write columns in old-fashioned newspapers, who have never won anything in their lives, but believe their word is worth its weight in gold. I mean, aside from that, you know that the Oracle of Delphi gave advice, but didn't make decisions, which is also a slightly different step. On the platform, they are all great technicians. But we didn't just adopt this innovative logic for the campaign, we also believed it was the right approach to running the country. To find solutions to the problems that have plagued us as a nation for too long. Because the political leadership kept changing its chefs. But they always continued to use the same recipe for failure to govern. And that's how it turned out for us. In other words, it was a difference in manners. That is, many of the Precambrian analog red circle, who fortunately aren't supported by the audience, aren't supported by the ratings. That's why they're incredibly angry. And why they're also the biggest whistleblowers, constantly criticizing, because, of course, they predicted I would lose to. Even Massa, supposedly, those on a certain side. And they didn't realize that all they were doing was talking about the same recipe, but with different manners. In fact, they promote the same recipe, but they think the problem is manners. And that also shows how basic, rudimentary, and Precambrian they are, because they don't realize that what's truly changed is the concept. That is, Argentina is sinking because it has continually embraced increasing doses of socialism for 100 years. And here, we've returned to embracing the ideas of freedom. In fact, it's sometimes irritating or even comical. I mean, people who criticize me say, "You're not practicing liberalism." And they don't even understand the ideas, because if they understood them, they would be liberals. But they're not, precisely because they don't understand them. So they criticize me for what I do or don't do, and they don't even understand what we're talking about. And here's another interesting thing. During the campaign, Dupuy said a phrase that I consider brilliant, and one of the things he said is that the problem wasn't the cook, the problem was the recipe. Because, ultimately, that's the flip side of what Hayek called fatal arrogance. I mean, believing that the other, then, because he's less intelligent or less educated, or whatever, couldn't do it for those reasons, but now that the one who knows it all comes along, he's going to fix it. No, the problem is the idea, and that idea doesn't work. That's why we know that changing the leader isn't enough, because to expect different results we have to do different things, and that's why we return to embrace the ideas of freedom. Which was what made the world great. It was what made Argentina great. It was the ideas we embraced beginning in 1860. When we implemented the Alberti Constitution of '53, and in 35 years we became the world's leading power. If we did it in the 19th century with a much more adverse situation in terms of technology and the speed of progress, why wouldn't we do it now? That's also why, let's say, a large part of the bet is to stir up lions, because I didn't come to guide lambs, I came to stir up lions, precisely. That is to say, I came to awaken the creative force of each one of us. We are what we are going to make of the future a better future, but not the state, which is the machine of oppression. And finally, we have discovered that doing things differently in Argentine politics necessarily implies the recovery of a core value for us, the value of truth. We say what we think and do what we say. In other words, you will find a perfect consonance between the things we said in the campaign and the things we are doing. We campaigned and carried a chainsaw. And I said it would involve a chainsaw in public spending. We inherited a fiscal deficit of 15 points of GDP, 5 in the Treasury, 10 in the central bank. Despite all the predictions that the Treasury could only be adjusted by 1 percentage point per year and that the central bank would fix itself, which is why some geniuses also proposed raising interest rates, which would have made the problem much bigger today, we fixed it. 6 months after taking office, we eliminated the consolidated fiscal deficit. We ended the Treasury deficit and the quasi-fiscal deficit generated by the central bank. We made the largest adjustment in the history of humanity. And they said it was impossible. Nothing is impossible. You have to have the conviction to do it. What's more, when the majority speculates, when the majority has grown accustomed to lies, when the majority chooses speculation over truth, when the majority turns a blind eye to things that are wrong. I said it in my speech at the Latin American Jewish Congress, and I repeat it now. When those on the side of good don't speak out in favor of good, they work for evil. Those who remain neutral work for evil. One is either on the side of truth or on the side of lies. One is either on the side of peace or on the side of war. One is either on the side of freedom or on the side of slavery. There are no half measures. There are no half measures. And maintaining neutral positions only favors criminals. Therefore, with criminals to the bone. Therefore, when one makes this approach, and when it happens systematically, across the entire political spectrum, the act of telling the truth, even if it is uncomfortable, becomes an innovative act. This is true for Argentine politics. But I believe it is also true for the attitude that much of the free world has taken toward the conflict in Israel. Our position is clear, and we repeat it whenever we can. We have decided to speak the truth, even if it is uncomfortable, to do the right thing, even if it is inconvenient. We want that to be one of our greatest legacies. In closing, I want to thank Elon again for the recognition and the opportunity to share this moment with you, and leave you with a message of hope. All of us have a thread that connects us to the divine and the eternal. Innovation is one instance of that connection. It is a channel that connects us to the forces of heaven. Because it allows us to transcend the limits of what seems humanly possible. In other words, it allows us to make the impossible possible. Therefore, embarking on this innovative path will lead to possibilities still undreamed of for Argentina. After all, we are rich in resources and human capital. We have simply been persisting with flawed formulas for too long. I am sure that along this path, the friendship and collaboration between our nation and the State of Israel will bring mutual benefits in various areas. I hope that the launch of Elon in Argentina will help promote relations between our two nations and allow us to continue strengthening a bond that is not only important to me personally, but to all Argentines who have decided to support the ideas of freedom. Know that you will always find a strong friend in Argentina. Thank you very much and long live freedom, damn it.